in my head. What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Eddie Live Podcast, episode 288.
Wow.
I am here with German tech expert, tech blogger, and a personal friend of mine, Sascha Pallenberg. How you doing,
Hi,
brother?
Eddie. Doing good. All right. Thank you for inviting me again.
My pleasure.
The last time I had a bit of a problem after the hot wing challenge.
That's right. That's right.
I collapsed in one of your booths over there.
It's okay. Okay, yeah, no problem.
After the, what was it, the Reaper?
The Reaper wing, yes,
Oh,
that's right.
God.
We still have that. People are still liking that. People still ask about that. It's good. But we stopped doing the wings because a lot of people were getting scared. They're like, I don't want to do the podcast because I don't want to eat. I don't want to look like a fool on camera. But yeah, brother.
Come on.
You're my go-to tech guy. You're the go-to expert in AI, obviously, right? You're my guy. Whenever I have a question of AI, I just Google you and message you. And so now, what do you think about AI? When somebody says AI to you, what's the first thing that pops into your head? Like right now, 2025 AI.
Media hype.
Okay.
That doesn't mean that I'm saying AI hype, but it's like, it's a media frenzy for the last 2 or 3, let's say for the last 2+ years or so.
Yeah.
Everybody is just covering what just developed after OpenAI launched ChatGPT in the first public beta, and people could play around with a chatbot, an AI chatbot and a large language model.
Yep.
And so we had like this massive development since then, not only on this large language model, but also when it comes to, in general, to generative AI.
Yeah.
So when it comes to image creation, think about these Stable Diffusion, DALL-E, Midjourney, or even text to video like OpenAI's Sora. It's just amazing to see that development and how this evolved in just about 2 years or so. So what I'm saying is, yes, massive media frenzy, which sometimes leads to developments where I think this is absolutely ridiculous and stupid.
Yep.
We especially saw this. We're probably going to touch that topic a little bit later when it comes to DeepSeek R1.
Definitely.
The outcome of this and what kind of impact it had on stock markets are completely ridiculous. But it also shows you there's still a lot of uncertainty for a lot of people out there, especially when it comes to analysts and especially to investors. But there's also these dynamics of that we are at a still very early stage of these models that we can use right now. And this gives a lot of companies still the opportunity to come up with new approaches, new processes to kind of maybe even leapfrog some of their competitors.
Sure.
Or even come up with something completely new. Yeah, so I'm excited, but I'm also very, very critical about the development.
Well, that's actually why I wanted to get you on because, like I said, you're the go-to AI guy. We have a question here that says, is Raul there? That's Swiss Philip. How you doing, man? Yes, Raul is here. That's Philip online. Yes, he's here. So obviously, I think the newest news right now is the DeepSeek, right? How, OpenAI has spent billions and billions of dollars, and then DeepSeek spent like $5 million US and is on par, if not ahead. That's what the stories are saying, but I haven't dove that deep in. I was waiting to have this conversation with you. So tell me a little bit about the DeepSeek.
Aaron, the story got just echoed by all of the news medias all around the globe. And the story is complete and utter bullshit. Sorry to say it like this. Yes,
okay.
I'm not sure how family-friendly that podcast is.
We're good. You can say it, yeah.
No, it's just like, well, first of all, DeepSeek R1, the model dropped on the 20th of January.
Okay.
And like 4 or 5 days later, people were really picking it up and played around with it. And then the first news outlets also picked it up. And then this kind of sell-off just started, this massive frenzy, and which wiped out just 600 billion of market capitalization of companies like NVIDIA. I think it was over $1 trillion US.
That's crazy.
The
Nvidia,
impact on I was just completely overblown and ridiculous what came out of it. So just to give you a little bit of an idea about DeepSeek, I mean, the story was like, hey, look at this. There's a little kind of startup somewhere in China, and they had a little bit of a side hustle, and then they came up with this amazing model for just $5 million US.
Was it university kids or something?
Yeah.
Said?
I mean, that's the overall story.
Okay.
Which is also a kind of a myth that is ridiculous. So behind this is actually a hedge fund. The guy who's running this small little startup has about $7 billion US in assets that he's running. And over the last years, he hired a lot of talents, especially in the field of mathematics and in general STEM, right? Like science and technology and engineering and mathematics. A lot of medal winners of the Olympic Championship in math, right? So he really got a bunch of very, very young kids and amazing talents and bright minds around him. And so they created a model. People said, okay, it's only $5 million. The $5 million is basically what it would cost to hire the computing time in the cloud, right? To kind of calculate this and to train this model. And that's, first of all, a huge difference. There's probably an estimation of that this company has, even though that there is a so-called AI Act or the so-called CHIP Act in the US, which puts a ban on the shipment of various high-performance NVIDIA chips into mainland China. But I mean, there's so many ways to work around this embargo, especially through Singapore. Singapore became one of the biggest hubs in the last 3-4 years to run these Chinese operations in terms of how they're buying hardware that is actually restricted, has an export restrictions. So the estimation is that they probably get about 50,000 GPUs. I mean, just to give you an idea, 50,000 H100 from NVIDIA, each one cost about $30,000 US. Out of a sudden, we had 1.5 billion. Right? Whole different ball game right away. Then on top of it, I mean,
so people bullshit then.
Well, the money is, first of all, the money thing is bullshit. The super small little startup thing, bullshit. And when it comes to how they, and this is fascinating, and I'm not saying this is the overall idea is bullshit, not at all. I think it's super fascinating, and they add so much value to the overall development. So when you look at the model right now, what they basically did is, I mean, at the end of the day, it's a matter of how I'm going to train my model. Where I'm getting the data from. So I think with ChatGPT 2.5, before they really went like public, they basically harvested all of the data that was available publicly on the internet by late 2021. And then you saw a little bit of a shift in this industry. Then they started to run transcript of YouTube videos, or they were harvesting podcasts just to get the data into their system. So these guys, what they did was just basically, there are open source models around, and we're going to dive into this a little bit later because I think it's super fascinating, and you don't need to be a complete geek to understand this, but most of you guys are probably familiar with ChatGPT or with Gemini or whatnot. But it's possible for you to actually run these models on your computer. So what they did, they used open source models. One of the most well-known open source model is Llama, which is from Meta. So that's the kind of umbrella company of Facebook and Instagram and whatnot. So the latest model is like Llama 3.3. And they used Qwen. Qwen is a Chinese model, also open source, but that's the one from Alibaba.
I've seen that one.
And these models are quite capable already. So they use these models and they basically distilled them. So they built a model, the DeepSeek R1 has 671 billion parameters. So it's all the data that they put in there. Just to give you an idea, ChatGPT 4.0 has 1.7 trillion. So it's about almost 3 times bigger.
Okay. Yeah.
So they use their massive model that you could still download, but you just can't run it. Why? Because it's like 400 gigabytes big, and you need as much RAM.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, on your computer, and preferably in a GPU, so in your graphic card, right? Because this is where these models are optimized on. So they need a lot of cores and whatnot. So no one has a computer like this.
Nobody.
So you would also easily need to get 16 of these NVIDIA H100.
Okay.
So if you want to properly run this model locally, it costs you about $500,000 US.
Okay.
To have a machine to run this.
Okay.
Which is, by the way, for universities and large corporations, that's a
great
deal, right?
For sure.
That's a steal. It would be, and definitely a game changer.
For the average Joe, it's not possible.
No.
Gotcha.
So they use this massive, large model, and then they distilled it down. And it's a little bit like, how you're going to make a mezcal or a tequila, right?
Gotcha.
The more kind of focus you put on the distillation of it, right, the higher the alcohol can go.
Sure.
It's also a little bit of a kind of science to do that. So they use these massive models and distilled them into smaller models. The smaller DeepSeek R1 you can get only has 1.5 billion parameters.
I've seen those.
And they're only like a gigabyte big. So you can just download it for free. And there's 3 little programs that you need to run this. Amazing how-tos available on the internet. And then you can run this small little model on your computer at home. And don't expect anything in terms of it has the latest data or whatnot.
Okay.
But it can still help you, for example, to sum up an article and all of these things. And it's going to be fast, right? Because it's so small.
What would be the benefit of the average person to download one of these mini models to their own personal PC?
Well, first of all, it doesn't have an internet connection anymore. Right? You don't need an internet connection for this anymore. That also means it's not communicating with any more servers. The first video that I did about DeepSeek R1 was, of course, trying to, push it to its limits.
Sure, of course.
Why is that? It's on a Chinese server. So that means it also has to cover these Chinese laws and these regulations.
Oh, gotcha.
And of course, I went all into kind of the geopolitical situations.
Sure.
Want to figure out what's going on.
Yeah.
And of course, it didn't give you the answers. It was censoring just so much stuff. Plus, on top of it, when you look through the terms of services of DeepSeek, it just literally says that each and every input of data will be used to train their models again.
Okay.
Just 2 or 3 days after DeepSeek became this kind of media frenzy, people reported about this. Hey, listen, it's also recording each and every keystroke, and it's sending it back to the Chinese servers. That was another red flag. And you know what? The more people just got used to it and reviewed it and played around with it, they could discover things like, first of all, these benchmarks that they announced.
Yeah.
I always take it with a grain of salt. If any company is launching a new model or any kind of new product, and they come up with their own benchmarks, right?
Of course,
come on. But especially when it comes to news and kind of realizing that things are not right, I think it came in these kind of how truthful these models are. I think it came in on the 10th place out of 11 from these kind of watchdogs that are running these things. It heavily failed on this.
Setting your own benchmarks could be like the number 1 Mexican Canadian owned restaurant in Asia.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes sense.
And on top of it, it also has. The data set that they use, I think they have a cutoff in late 2023.
Okay.
So this is the data set. And now it gets really interesting. So there was an investigation by Microsoft and OpenAI, and once again, also take this with a grain of salt, because obviously these guys are also trying to defend their assets. But Microsoft has a 49% stake in OpenAI when it comes to the commercial arm of OpenAI.
Gotcha.
Right? So let's make some money. This is why we have these Windows Copilot PCs, and OpenAI is the model that all of this is based on.
Sure, of course.
So they had an investigation, and they found out there were a bunch of accounts on OpenAI playing around with that model and the API so that it really gets like a direct connection to the data set.
Okay.
That were connected to DeepSeek.
Oh, they didn't even try to hide it.
So basically the accusation right now is that they stole all of the data from the OpenAI model to train their models.
Okay.
Right now, here's another one. It's not, in my opinion, not an accusation anymore, because there's another watchdog group that actually came out with a jailbreak to let DeepSeek reveal what their core model is.
Really?
And then it said OpenAI ChatGPT.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's kind of funny, but again, we're talking about something that created the sell-off of $1 trillion on the stock market, and now the more we look into this, the more we look behind the scene and understand this model. And again, I'm not saying that this is complete bullshit. It's fascinating.
Yep.
And the more we discover, you know what, maybe we just need to step back a little bit. But again, it's amazing, this kind of distillation of the model, which is cool, right? Because the performance of these models, that's pretty cool. And they also have something in the way the machine or the model trains and learns from the other model, which you can compare, let's say like a toddler starting to learn to walk.
Sure.
Right?
Okay. Yeah.
So, and they're all kind of shaky and tumbling around because you just don't have this muscle memory back then. You don't know how to properly position the joints and your feet.
Sure, of course.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of learning by doing thing, and you're kind of making mistakes. And that's what this model is also. And this kind of a strategy and process that they also learn, use to train these models. And this is something that really adds a lot to this AI community and the overall industry. At the end of the day, I don't think that DeepSeek will be in any way a player, especially they're getting banned all over the world because of these kind of data and privacy issues. But I mean, the process is absolutely fascinating. And on top of it, they made it open source. And by the way, this is why we saw this huge sell-off.
So it sounds like in the beginning, before anybody knew kind of all this info, everything crashed, right?
Yes.
Definitely. And so what was the response from OpenAI? Like during, they released in some new version or something, right?
Yeah.
So what was their response to be like, oh my gosh, DeepSeek, what's going on?
What you have to keep in mind is with these kind of massive corporations in the Silicon Valley, I mean, they all have a roadmap. They all need to be able to react to anything that their competitors are doing. So this is something that you're going to see with OpenAI, with Google and Gemini. You're going to see with Claude. There's also a European model called Mistral.
Oh, I never
So all of these guys, you know what, they are working on so many different things. Like just, I think it was almost less than a week. OpenAI launched O3 Mini, which is a reasoning model. And for the very first time, you don't have to pay to use a reasoning model from OpenAI. What does reasoning model means? When you look at the name of GPT, the T stands for transformer. What does a transformer do? I mean, it is just recognizing, for example, you type in a prompt. You put something in there. It's just not starting with the first word and just goes through the whole sentence word by word. But it is capable of just, using a bunch of them in parallel and processing them. And that has a lot to do with kind of how certain percentage-wise, what's the possibility that after I typed in this word, this would be the next word.
Okay.
So it tries to understand context on the one hand.
Okay.
And it is just running through the kind of mathematical equation and process. With the reasoning models, it is just using all kinds of different, let's say, overthinking and self-reflective processes to even questioning these processes, right? And I mean, this is something what you probably would do if you come up with a scientific paper. You always have to double check it.
Yeah,
right?
of course.
You need to have these different sources, different opinions. And this is what you see with these reasoning models. And that's why everyone was also so surprised, because for the very first time, they saw a reasoning model doing this in real time with DeepSeek R1 and actually showing you this process, visualizing this, right? This is really something that was new for people playing around with the reasoning model for the very first time. But now OpenAI reacted to this. So there's an OpenAI O3 Mini and an O3 Mini High. Okay. Before that, they had O1, which was their reasoning model, but you had to pay for it. You had to be at least a Plus user. It's like $20 a month. Yeah. Or a Pro user, which is like $200 a month.
Yeah, I saw that.
So they released this. Just 3 days ago, just 3 days after they released this one, they released Deep Research, which is insane. This is only for the Pro users, $200 a month right now, but the output is seriously. I mean, I haven't tried it out on my own because I still don't want to pay $200 a month for.
I don't think many people want to, honestly. Yeah.
But no. Think about it. I mean, for example, what you could do. Remember when we were here during COVID, and we all know that about 2/3 of the global semiconductor shipments are coming from Taiwan, and now all of these supply chains were interrupted globally. And now think about you need to do a research paper and analysis on, okay, please let me know about the disruptions in the global supply chains of semiconductors in between 2020 and 2022. What kind of impact did it have on the various industries and whatnot? And then bam, 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 bam. It's going to do research, like an agent that is running through the internet, trying to collect data from all different sources. It can take many minutes, right? Like let's say like 7-10 minutes or so. Okay. And then it comes up with an analysis that's like 10,000 words long, right? Wow. And it is absolutely amazing and very, very impressive. And a lot of scientists already were bragging about it, that they were so impressed by this. I mean, I'm still always, as much as I love this development, I'm also always critical with the output. I think you have to double check everything all the time. Yeah. But this kind of process shows you how fast and how quickly they can respond to any kind of additional threats. I'm pretty sure that OpenAI will also launch an additional model. I have some new announcements coming out very, very soon. Same with Gemini. Gemini 2.0 Live. There's a new Pro experimental version available, right? And you can just say, okay, you know what? You're going to have access on my screen, on my desktop, which is, of course, a little bit spooky for some people. Sure. But then you can just, and you also connect your microphone to it. And then you can say, hey, by the way, I'm just running here. I want to edit a video in Final Cut or Adobe Premiere. Right, and I don't know how can I cut out the background here, right? Okay. And you just say, okay, get your pointer over there on this menu, and it's gonna walk you through everything. Oh wow! Okay. It is insane. It's insanely good, and so yeah, there's just so much going on, and these are all kinds of features that DeepSeek can't do right now. Okay. But I mean, DeepSeek is just so cool because if you download this model, first of all, it won't have these restrictions that the one that you can use on the web. So I would really, really wholeheartedly recommend not using the web version. Okay. Maybe you want to do that and want to share all of your data, but I would definitely not want to do that. But with the local models, there will be so many amazing developers out there that are going to build some cool stuff on top of them. Okay. So that's the DeepSeek and the OpenAI, right? So Gemini is
was second place, I think, right? Or it was. And now, so how does Gemini now fit into this kind of, because ChatGPT has been the big guy for a long time, and now DeepSeek, is all over the news for the last week. How does kind of Gemini fit into this?
I think if I need to make a prediction, which is, you can only lose with making predictions in the AI race. Right?
Of course.
I mean, I've never ever seen anything like it in all of my life. What you have to keep in mind, the sheer amount of computing power that we build with all of these data centers and server farms around the world is second to none in mankind or in humankind's history.
Sure.
Just to give you an idea, if you look back at like 10 years ago, we all talked about Moore's law. Right? If you have a PC or a tablet or laptop or whatnot with an Intel or AMD processor, the co-founder of Intel, Moore, kind of came up with Moore's law in the 60s. So it's a little bit of a kind of benchmark of how semiconductor industry is evolving. That says every 18 to 24 months, the amount of transistors on a chip, the performance and the efficiency doubles.
Oh, okay.
This was just like a pretty safe bet for decades. So when we look back at the development of these Intel and AMD processors that are based on x86, which is an architecture, and under this Moore's law, so in 10 years, they gained about 500 to 600%. I got 5 to 6 times faster.
Okay.
And now compare this to the development of NVIDIA. So that's the company that is just running all of these data centers, they're building the GPUs for it.
Yeah.
In the last 10 years, NVIDIA gained performance-wise roughly between 8 and 10,000 times the performance.
Okay.
On top of it, now we have even more processing power, not only because of the processing power of each and every chip, but we built so many of them.
Okay.
We've never had this before. This is why it's so hard to predict anything.
Yeah.
But if I would need to make a prediction, I think it's going to be hard for a company like OpenAI to compete with Google on the long run.
Okay.
In terms of just, this massive amount of data that is available to them, and they have so many users. Just think about an Android handset.
Okay.
Like, we ship around 1.3 billion smartphones a year.
Okay.
280 million of them are running on iOS. The rest of them run on Android. So we talk about 1 billion devices each and every year that run on Android. And then they all have this kind of Google AI and the Gemini integrated.
Gotcha.
And right at this moment, it just can collect more data. It knows user scenarios much better.
Yeah.
And it shows. Google is working on so many different ways of models. So we have this Gemini, which is really interesting. There's also something called Notebook LM, which is fascinating.
That was amazing.
This is a little bit more on the OpenAI deep research side. So you can upload a bunch of documents and whatnot, and then you can just tell the model, based on these documents, I'm going to ask you some questions. You can even turn these documents into a podcast of two people.
I remember you doing that, yeah.
And now you can even interact with these two people. So you can do a live connection into the podcast and say, you know what, by the way, I also have a question and blah, blah, blah.
Wow.
It's fascinating. As I said already earlier, the dynamics are just so mind-blowing. We've never had anything like this, and people believing that this is all a hype or a trend. I feel bad for them, right? You can be super critical, and I am.
Sure.
I think it has also so many negative impacts on our societies and on the internet as a whole, and how we use data and what we do with data. And especially when it comes to all of this image generation, video generation, the issues around deep fakes and whatnot. It's a massive problem. A massive problem. But, we need to figure out a way of how we're going to deal with it and how we're going to use it as a tool, because that's exactly
not
what it
going
is.
away.
It's a tool. It's not going to go
Yeah,
away. It's
yeah.
it's getting bigger and bigger and
Yeah.
bigger and bigger.
I think one of the things I noticed is I use Google a lot, like obviously to Google stuff, find info. And now I think in the last couple months, Google, before you could kind of pay to be at the top of Google, or you could do SEO and all that to be at the top of Google. But now the top of Google is Gemini.
Yeah, it's Gemini.
It's Gemini, right? And it's all like, so you have to scroll down, down, down. How do you think that will affect, wouldn't that affect Google? Like that sounds like it's good for Google, but it's also like advertisers, I would think, would not pay because they still got to scroll down. They're still on page one, but page one is way down here. So how do you think is that going to be a thing? What do you think?
It's not bad for Google.
Okay.
It's bad for all of these guys who still believe that they need to be on the top of the search rankings.
Okay.
I mean, when you look at
but will they
all of you guys, right? Look at a Google, the Google result page, and compare this maybe to a Google result page that you're familiar with, like from 10 years ago or whatnot. First of all, you have the AI wrap up on top of it.
Exactly.
Then you have these kind of Crow embedded little drop-down boxes and menus.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And already give you an answer before that. Then you probably have like 3 or 4 sponsored posts.
Yes.
One of them might be even
Google again,
directing you to or even to a Google service right away.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of interesting. Out of a sudden, you have results that are based on the data of maybe a question and answer thing that ran on a Reddit forum, and now Google's using this data to actually monetize their own services behind that.
Okay.
So it's not bad for Google.
It's okay.
It's just bad for all of us. But by the way,
but would people not spend now? Do you think, or how would that affect? Because Google makes the money on their advertising revenue, right? So I would think, like, if I was the guy who's always at top, I would just forget about SEO, or I would just forget about paying. But it's all Google. So what's your opinion on that? Google's still making money, obviously.
I think the ad business on the web is going away.
Okay.
Yeah. First of all, nothing is for free, right?
Yeah.
And I would probably, once again, I'm just like, you can also still remember the first ads that you saw on Facebook and on all of these communities. Everything was for free. And you know what? We dealt with the ads because the first ads were like, your local plumber, all right, or whatever shop, right?
Sure.
And now you're getting hammered with stuff that you already bought just like 2 weeks ago, right?
Yes,
They're constantly showing you the same shop again.
Yeah.
Or you're getting hammered with all of these scammy ads.
And those are the worst.
This is why we also have this high ad block rate online. But on top of it, I don't think that the way we look for things online when we do search is sustainable the way it is. So Googling will go away.
Okay.
It's just a matter of, for example, you can try something like Arc Search, which is a little browser.
Okay.
And it basically creates a very, very customized and personalized result page for you.
Okay.
That even looks like a little home page, right?
Oh, that's
and it's
cool.
beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. And in a world where we use these AI agents and deep research, it's an AI agent. By the way, ChatGPT Task is another one where you can set up tasks. For example, I want to learn a new Chinese word every morning. Just train me one or teach me one. So you get a little update each and every morning about this. So it's a little AI agent going around and just do something for you.
Okay.
And these AI agents will change the way our internet and the infrastructure is set up.
Okay.
Also, when it comes to databases and front ends, so the UIs that we interact with, and I truly believe that in the future it is more like I have my own little search bot.
Gotcha.
That knows what I'm looking for, that also knows about the sources that I trust.
Okay.
And will kind of create this environment of trusted sources, of kind of personalized
like an algorithm type for you.
Search results, and a kind of predictive way of computing, because it gets to know you differently. I'm not talking about these algorithms that are constantly destroying our newsfeed. I mean, if you click like twice on the wrong video on YouTube, you know exactly what I mean when you look at your For You feed.
Yeah.
Right? I'm really talking about heavily customized, personalized AI agents that are going to help you.
Okay.
You don't need to Google anything. You're not going to see any more ads. They're not going to search.
Okay.
They're going to find.
Okay. So
And that's a huge difference.
Sure. So it sounds like instead of in the future, what you're saying is instead of going on and Googling something, you would have like an AI agent, your own customized sort of Gemini in your pocket, and you would just grab your phone and be like, hey, I'm looking for the best restaurant near me, blah, blah, blah. And the agent will know, I like Mexican, I like Indian, I like Japanese, maybe I don't like yada, yada, yada. Okay, so that's what you're saying. Okay.
And
that benefits Google because you're always on Google.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's happening. And also, I mean, we talked about this kind of local models of DeepSeek already.
Yep.
Now, when you look at the phones that we use nowadays, actually, I have one with me that I can show right now because 3 minutes ago it was launched.
There you go. Live launch here, Eddie Live show right now. Let's go. We got Sascha.
There we go.
Launching.
So this is the Asus Zenfone 12 Ultra. It's like an amazing flagship device, 6.8-inch display, has all the goodies that you are probably familiar with. Has the latest Qualcomm Snapdragon processor in there. And the cool thing about this is...
let's switch to this camera.
Oh, yeah, let's do that. There you go.
It's closer.
The cool thing about this is this Snapdragon processor is something called an NPU. The latest NPU. I mean, we already had generations before using an NPU. What is an NPU? You're familiar with the CPU, your central processing unit that's on your laptop from Intel or from AMD or whatnot.
Yep.
Then you're familiar with the GPU, that's your graphic card. It takes care of anything that happens on the screen. The NPU is the so-called neural processing unit.
Okay.
So what it does is it runs and processes AI models locally.
Locally, on the phone.
On the phone. So this little fellow over here runs a Llama 3 model.
Okay.
Locally with 8 billion parameters. And it uses it for example, summarizing text, translating, transcribing stuff, and all of this. And this is happening on the phone, so you don't need to go into the cloud. It's absolutely beautiful.
And you don't need to be online.
You don't need to be online for this. This is happening on the phone itself, and this is absolutely amazing. And but we see this with all of these phones that are coming out right now.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
In my opinion, a complete game changer because it also saves a lot of energy. Bandwidth when it comes to your data contract with your telco provider.
Gotcha.
So it is a bit of a game changer. Yeah.
That's beautiful. Wow. Okay. And that's one more time. The Asus.
That's a Zenfone 12 Ultra.
Okay. Beautiful.
You can also get this with the other devices, right? But I think right now you see more and more of these latest, especially when they run on the latest Qualcomm chipsets. I mean, they really have a powerful NPU. Actually, in terms of the performance, pretty much the same what you can get on the latest laptops.
Okay. I've actually never heard the term NPU before, which is cool. It's the first for me hearing that one. CPU, GPU, of course we know, but NPU, I don't know that. I didn't know that one. So obviously, lots of good things with AI, lots of cool things happening. What about like the flip side, the other side of the coin? Let's say replacing jobs, or the deep fake stuff, or misinformation, fake news, any of that. Like we've all seen, obviously. We're about the same age, Terminator 2, the robots, what's it called? What's it called? It's
Skylink.
Skynet.
Skynet. Exactly.
Skynet, like when, is that a possibility? I mean, how far, in your opinion, are we far away from that? I saw Elon Musk on Rogan, and he's like, we're not very far away from that. And, it's kind of like, what? Like, so what's your opinion on that? Because you're my go-to AI tech guy.
I mean, regarding Elon Musk, I would definitely say, when I saw this movie Idiocracy about like 20 years ago,
yes,
where Elon Musk feels to me like the square root of the Dunning-Kruger effect. It's just like, I mean, especially for those people who still think he's a genius. I don't think so. I don't think that we are close to this kind of AGI. Yeah. That
the war against the machines.
Yeah. I mean, when you look at the kind of Skynet production setup, I worked in the car industry for 4 years, and I mean, producing a car already looks like a Skynet update for 40 years.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, this is all automated, all customized robots doing this. But it's getting interesting. I mean, when we look at the development of robotics, AI will definitely be a game changer.
Okay.
Most of you guys are probably familiar with these kind of viral videos from Boston Dynamics.
Yes,
yeah, these robots doing all these flips and whatnot.
The dog robots that cannot fall down and stuff.
What you have to keep in mind, whether they are remotely,
scary. They look scary.
They look scary.
Yeah,
and it was especially scary when Google bought Boston Dynamics because out of a sudden those robots that can go anywhere
got plugged into
plugged into a company that knows everything about you.
They can go anywhere, and they got plugged into. They know everything about you now. Okay,
but when you look at these robots, whether they were remotely controlled, or I mean, these kind of movements were hard coded.
Okay.
So you know what? They were exactly trained on. You have to run through this parkour. You have to do these dance steps or whatnot. Now they have a new version of Atlas, which was the latest one, which is now fully electric, and it looks terrifying in a good way, right? Because I also love it, right? I also love the development.
Sure.
But now imagine that what AI can do, what this processing power can do. Out of a sudden, these machines can learn completely differently in the way of what kind of infrastructure I need for this, computing-wise.
Okay.
And how fast this is going to happen.
Okay.
So, as I said, you know what, before that, they trained these Boston Dynamic robots in a physical world, like in the real world. Where something, NVIDIA calls it the Omniverse, which is a kind of industrial metaverse. They use this basically to train models.
Okay.
For example, they use it, especially here in Taiwan, to train weather prediction models.
Okay.
For typhoons and whatnot. I think we are moving from an era of where the predictions were as accurate as 200, there may be 20 kilometers.
Okay.
Into an era where these models are now capable of doing these predictions down to centimeters.
Okay, wow.
And this is happening right now. And as I said, they use Taiwan as a prime example. Also, for example, when you're downtown here in the Shinny district, right, and you have all the skyscrapers around you, and there's a typhoon happening, you also have kind of these downfall winds, you know, that are coming from the sky. Now they can predict stuff like this, and they can calculate this. It's just it's insanely mind-blowing.
Okay.
And now imagine this computing power, because when you look at this, the fastest computers in the world, a lot of them were actually used to do weather calculations and predictions in the past. And now they can also use this to train robots in a virtual world.
Okay.
So you have this kind of omniverse. And as I said, I used to work for Daimler, which was the kind of umbrella company for Mercedes-Benz. And we also worked closely together with NVIDIA to build a new factory, a fab. It's called Factory 56 in Germany, in Sindelfingen, where they built the new S-Class or the EQS. So they built a digital twin. And then they kind of optimized everything, right? And I mean, the digital twin is, especially when it comes to city planning, it's nothing new, right?
I've seen that. Yeah, that's cool.
But now it's like really fast. And they can change things like in seconds. And calculate what kind of impact it would have. Okay, let's do a test run for like 24 hours or for a week. what kind of impact does it have percentage-wise on the output, on the efficiency and whatnot? And you can do that, right?
Well, that's
so
cool.
it's just so much easier to do this in a virtual world. You save so much money.
It sounds like that video game. Remember that Sims video game?
Exactly.
Remember that?
Exactly,
that was awesome.
Exactly.
Yeah, old school. Yeah.
Exactly. So and now imagine you're doing this with robots. Out of a sudden, you have the capabilities to train thousands and thousands and thousands of robots in parallel. And they can learn from each other. And this is happening. And that's what they're doing with it. And I think it's fascinating.
So with the robots and that learning from each other, and you were saying it's the hard-coded stuff, right? Is it possible for AI, like obviously I'm still thinking about that movie, right? Is it possible for the AI to be able to learn to hard code and then input the hard code thing? Are we still like, is that not a possible step?
I mean, what you need to understand what hard coded means. I give you an idea.
Sure.
A lot of people are maybe familiar with the October Tesla event of their robot taxi, the Cybercab. And they had this kind of show off in a Hollywood setup where these kind of steering wheel free robot taxis were transporting people from A to B. That was hard coded.
That
was 100%. Of course. Tesla's going to tell you otherwise, which is utter bullshit. This was hard-coded, right? They even had people in the background on a remote control to open the doors for these things.
Like a remote control car.
They even had teleoperated of their humanoid robots to talk to people over there, right? And it was ridiculously bad.
Wow.
So that's hard-coded, right?
So gotcha.
I am programming this machine, this platform, this robot to go from A to B. Right? So it only goes from A to B.
Gotcha.
If there is something in between, like it's might gonna block it, I need to make sure by the way, if you're getting blocked, do this or that.
If this, then that. Okay. Wow. Oh, that's interesting. Okay.
So this is what hard-coded means.
Gotcha. Okay.
To come to the point of creating autonomous systems, they need to kind of understand their surroundings. They need to autonomously know how they're going to react. Right? So these are different systems. Completely different. I mean, this is why you also have, when you look at these kind of autonomous cars, like you have this in San Francisco, Austin, Phoenix, Los Angeles. Google does this with Waymo. GM used to do this with Cruise. Volkswagen does this with Moya in Austin.
Volkswagen. Love it.
And so these are really autonomous cars, right?
Okay.
They're a little bit geofenced because they only operate in a kind of specific area. But they have a kind of redundancy, so they have cameras, they have radars, they have a LiDAR, like a laser radar. They have high-resolution maps, right? So they can rely on different sources to kind of double-check things if they're happening. Is this a cat, or is this maybe, let's say, a cow? And how I'm going to react to this, right? And then so this is giving us a chance to have autonomous platforms. And with the additional computing power that we have right now imagine getting this into robots. This will be such a game changer.
Beautiful. I'm just going to roll a quick sponsored ad right here. Don't forget to check this out. We'll be back in like 30 seconds. Do you ever wish you had a time machine so you could go back in time and buy up all those tech stocks before they blew up? Well, unfortunately, time travel hasn't been invented yet. We're waiting on you, Elon. But I want to introduce you to the next best thing. Introducing LevelFields.ai. LevelFields.ai uses cutting-edge AI to analyze millions of global financial events, uncovering patterns that often impact stock prices. Whether you're an options trader or a swing trader, LevelFields.ai simplifies the process by showing historical trends and helping you predict what's next. Take the guesswork out of investing. Save time, save money, and transform your trading game in 2025. Visit levelfields.ai now to start trading smarter. Boom. All right. So let's go through some pictures here.
I'm curious.
I'm going to pull up some pictures here. Bam.
Oh, yeah.
They're in German, obviously, but tell me kind of what was the process behind some of your best
DeepSeek, right?
Yeah.
It was just like,
good name, good title.
I did this video because Meta created 4 war rooms when DeepSeek came out.
Oh.
DeepSeek came out.
Okay.
And so this is why I play with the words like this. So they created these 4 war rooms with a bunch of engineers to figure out how they're going to react towards the threat of this new AI model and what kind of impact it's going to have on their business. And if they can also implement these process of training models in their future models. So this is why I'm nervous. That's for sure.
I think everyone probably did, right? Okay, beautiful. Next one. Bam. I want to know this one because obviously you're a good friend of mine and you're German, right?
Yeah.
And I'm curious, and you're not the biggest fan of Elon, right?
Wow.
So I'm curious about this. Very curious about this one.
For the very first time, he at least for a broader audience, he revealed what he really is. He's just a little fascist, right? And I mean, to do the Hitler salute during a presidential inauguration. By the way, you won't get far in Germany by showing this salute.
Yeah,
it's forbidden.
I'm sure. Yeah.
They're gonna fine you big time for this, right? And you might gonna do this second time. You're gonna go to jail, rightfully so.
Yeah.
And what you see is so the headline is that Tesla's sales are just really, really falling.
Yeah.
And actually, this happens. By the way, the latest numbers are. Throughout Europe, like in France, it just went down 67%.
Okay.
Last January compared to the January in 2024. Germany, like 47%. California, one of the core markets for a Tesla.
Yeah.
I mean,
nobody wants to be associated with that.
Alienated his core customer
That's
base,
crazy.
and I think he's an idiot, right? I've been covering this. I'm telling people he's an idiot for over 10 years.
I know, yeah.
Yeah, and I got so many shitstorms and hate for this, right? I was, you know what? No, I'm the one that is just hanging out, having a popcorn, a sip of wine, and just, see all of this, all of my predictions unfolding regarding this person. I think he needs to be locked up.
One more for him, and then we'll go to a different topic. Bam.
Oh yeah. That was
one of your best performers.
Yeah, he's one of my best performers. So I did this after they said, okay, you know what, he's part of this department, Doge department, right, where they're working on Department of Government Efficiency, right? And now imagine this. So he sent a bunch of high school kids out of his halo to the U.S. Treasury. And they knocked on the door and said, you know what, we want to get in there. They have no security clearance and whatnot.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
They communicated through Gmail addresses with them. And they said, if you don't let us in, we're going to call the U.S. Marshals. And now he actually has, he can actually access the whole kind of financial, processes of the U.S. Treasury, which is like insane, absolutely insane, and frightening. And then the next one was like, okay, we're gonna dismantle the Department of Education, right? And you are like, what the hell is going on here? And then 5 hours later, they said, okay, by Friday, we are going to dismantle U.S. aid, right? Which is, all of it's like $43 billion a year that they put into development projects all around the world. We're talking about tens of thousands of people that are living somewhere in refugee camps, that are actually in need of this money because otherwise they're gonna die.
Yeah,
and that
life or death.
All of that shit is. This is just happening in days or sometimes in hours, and as I said, you know what, it feels like if I would have come up with a script like this like 2 years ago, would go to Netflix to a producer and say, hey, by the way, I have an amazing idea about the future of the US government. And you know what? They're going to have like 13 billionaires in the cabinet, right?
Yeah.
And then they have a guy from South Africa who actually got in on an illegal visa from Canada into the US, who was illegally in the US, and is now running the show, right?
Yeah.
How about that? Let's do that, right? And now he has access on the US Treasury. I said, everybody would call you out on this. I said, no, that's insane.
You were saying idiocracy, right?
Idiocracy, exactly. But that's exactly what's
crazy.
happening right now.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy, man. I think, I have one more. I think it's a Tesla one. Yeah, bam. That's the last one.
Yeah.
That's the last one. Yeah.
So what I did with this was after the Tesla earning calls.
Mm-hmm.
I ran a little bit of a fact check through his predictions. I mean, he's been lying for over a decade about his autonomous cars, and now he's telling, kind of predicting that they're going to build 100 million robots in the future, whenever this future is going to be. I mean, it's a meme stock. A lot of people are making a shitload of money with it, right? But it's just like, for me, it's just the biggest grift and scam in the post-industrial world.
It's crazy, right? And then the new coins as well, like the Trump coin and all that stuff,
think about this. No, they're doing these rug pulls of meme coins in the wide open right now. We're talking about, I think, this kind of Trump coin that they just launched before the inauguration.
Yeah, and it went through the roof, right?
Went through the roof, and then you had the Melania coin.
Melania coin, yeah.
And it went up to $80 or $70. Now it's like 15 or whatnot. So people lost millions and millions and all of their savings. And they enriched themselves with billions and billions and billions of dollars.
Yeah.
And this has each and every single person of us doing anything closely related to such a business, we would end up in jail.
Yeah, for sure, of course. I mean, the Haktua girl got all that hate for that, right?
Well, she has a problem. There are going to be quite some lawsuits towards her.
I think so too, right? Yeah. I'm curious, one more Elon question. When he took over Twitter, everybody thought that was a joke, and then eventually he did, and then he changed it to X.
Yeah.
Like, what's your kind of opinion about that? Did he make it better? Did he make it worse? He's like, it's all bots. We're going to fire, blah, blah, blah. So tell me about that.
I left Twitter the day he bought it.
Okay.
Like, exactly the day he bought it. I made one last video. I said, you know what? I can't become a product of Elon Musk. This is going to be a shit show. And it is a shit show.
Okay.
It is massively overrun by bots and propaganda accounts, from all kinds of authoritarian regimes and whatnot. It's full of hate speech. It is just absolutely ridiculous.
Okay.
It's not an environment where I can communicate anymore. And as soon as you go to Twitter right now, just open up a new account. I mean, the algorithm is just, first of all, constantly feeding you Elon Musk content and then Tesla content and whatnot.
But it's his now, right? That makes sense.
And he calls it, it's his town square of free speech. It's a town square of his free speech.
Okay.
Because when he doesn't like what you say, you're going to get banned right away.
Okay.
I mean, there was this kind of scandal around him where actually the gaming community figured out that he was just one of the biggest cheaters in gaming that existed.
Okay.
So he said, I was one of the best Quake players. He wasn't. Completely made up. I was one of the. I was the best Diablo 4 player.
I heard
he
that
wasn't
too.
Completely. He used an exploit, and he was on a ranking that only like 400 players worldwide were using. And then he had this. What was his other game? Path of PoE, Path of Exile 2, and then they figured out that there was actually he paid a person to level up his character.
Really? He outsourced the level up.
Because he was doing a live stream.
Okay.
And he was just doing ridiculous
Okay.
movements. And the way he just played his character, people were just taking the piss out of him.
Okay.
And then he got into an argument with some of these kind of top players like Asmongold or whatnot.
Okay.
Right? And he called him out on it. What did Elon Musk do? First of all, he took away the verification mark from this guy.
Oh.
Then he started to leak direct messages from this guy
wow.
and stuff like this. Like,
that's crazy.
went completely bonkers. So the whole gaming community, which is a massive community,
massive. Yeah.
and he was kind of really pampering them for many years as this cool guy, and who's also sharing all these memes and whatnot. They finally know that this is the biggest clown that's alive.
Wow.
I mean, and when you're 53 years old and you're cheating in gaming, what the hell?
That's crazy.
What does it tell about you?
That's crazy, man. Well, that's all I got for Elon, man. But that's kind of crazy, yeah.
Yeah.
What about if someone were to ask you, what's the most exciting part right now of AI? Like any part of the AI, sort of. What would you think?
I like the idea of agents and assistants that are going to do work for us, like super stupid work that we don't want to do, click work, right?
Yeah.
For example, imagine, I mean, the models are very close to do that, and some of them are already doing this in a kind of demo environment. You have your little agent, and it knows, okay, this is the airline that I always use. When I fly to this specific city, it's probably this restaurant where I want to go in, and I want to stay in this hotel or whatnot, and I want to take, I want to leave on a Friday and want to come back on a Sunday evening or whatnot. Yeah. And you would just say, okay, you know what? I want to spend the next weekend in San Francisco, and it would just arrange everything for you right away. So it's a combination of a large language model with a large action model. So no one is saying large action model anymore, in my opinion. So it's more like agents, but they're capable of using your data and interacting with apps. And then they can run through this whole process, and they're doing exactly this for you.
It's like almost like a clone of you. Like it's kind of like a mini AI sort of. Okay, so I like to eat this place and that place. It'll make the reservations. It'll book the tickets. It'll do all that stuff. It'll put your info. Oh, that's cool.
I think that's
pretty
cool.
exciting.
Yeah,
because that's like the Google search thing. That's kind of that's an annoying thing to be able like. Well, I need to find a restaurant. I need to find a hotel in this area. I need to book tickets. Something you have to do, but you don't want to do. Right. So so that sounds cool, man.
Oh, just imagine. I don't know. Here, I have 10,000 MP3 files all on my hard disk. By the way, I want you to read all the metadata, change the file names into the proper artist, a song title name, and then I also want you to sort them by artist, put them in single folders for each and every artist. Please, can you also download, when there is an album, can you also download the cover version of it and set all of this up? All of these super time-consuming click jobs, right?
Yeah.
And this is a very, very simple click job, right? And now imagine how complex they can become. This is what I'm really looking forward to.
That's cool because I also have, like, for example, in my cloud, like my Google Drive, my photos are there.
Yeah.
And every time I take a photo, I'll always take 2 or 3. Yeah. And they almost look the same.
Oh, yeah.
So then when you're going through, there's so much crap on there.
I can't wait.
And it's like, I want to, I'm always thinking to myself, one day I'll go through it and I'll organize my Google Drive. But it's so much stuff in there. There's so much crap in there that it's like, it's something that I will love to do, but I don't want to do it. Or at one point a few years ago, my Gmail got just so clogged with emails. Yeah. And then it took me forever to organize it again. And then I let it go again, and now it's a mess. And I look at it, and it's just, I don't want to do that.
They have a little bit of a Gemini assistant already for those Google Workspace users, but it is goddamn dumb, to be honest. Like, you know what? I'm asking it, like, it's more like a generative AI that can just help you. I mean, how to draft emails and look over them and whatnot.
It helps you reply.
But, exactly. But when I'm like, okay, can you tell me, how many emails I'm getting in average, right? And how many are there are spam? And so I can't answer this question. Blah, blah, blah.
Man. Last question. Mm-hmm. If you had to make one prediction, like we're in 2025, so 5 years from now, let's say 2030.
Oh God.
I mean, that's tough to predict, of course, because in the last few years,
what?
it's gone on. I mean, are we having flying cars? Are we having like, driverless cars? I mean, what is it? You remember that movie? What's that movie? Wall-E? Remember that Wall-E? Yeah. Are we going Wall-E, like where people are just going to sit there and robots and AIs are going to be doing everything for us? Like in the next, let's say 5 years.
I think we're going to have robots in 2030, like humanoid robots. I don't think that they are cheap enough to become a commodity.
Okay.
I would still kind of get them into the region of a new car, $30,000+.
Okay.
But I mean, still affordable for some people,
affordable
right?
for most, for some.
If you can decide if you live in a city with such a fantastic public transport system like here in Taipei, let's ditch the car, get a robot, right?
That makes sense. Yeah, I don't even have. I've been here for like 20 plus years, and I've never owned a car here. No need.
It just makes no sense.
MRT, now
exactly.
U-Bike. Now, for example, if we want to go to the beach or something, now you can just even rent a car for like 600 NT for the day.
Exactly.
There's no point in it, it plus a little bit for insurance. Yeah. So there's no point for us to own a car.
I agree
honestly.
with you.
So,
absolutely.
Okay.
You're going to use the car when you actually really need it. And therefore, I believe we're going to see these robots in the next 5 years.
Okay.
How are they going to look like? I can't tell.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really depending on how fast this industry can scale up.
Okay.
To see this in the kind of industrial context first.
Yeah.
Where it does work. And the more they're going to produce, of course, the economy of scale will help to bring the prices down.
Yeah. Like I've seen robots that fold towels for hotels. Little things like that.
I'm not sure if you really need a humanoid robot for it, or if it could be something specialized that might be much cheaper.
Yeah.
I do believe that we're going to have autonomous cars, at least in a kind of environment of like kind of cities or whatnot.
Okay.
I'm not sure if we will be at level 5, but never say never. Maybe we are. I'm still doubting that that any manufacturer wants to roll out a car that is fully autonomous, that can drive you anywhere, because you don't want to be the first one
to murder somebody.
Really have the big one where this robot, because the car is a robot on wheels, needs to decide between, am I going to kill this old couple to avoid the accident, or this kindergarten group?
So this kid's bus, that's tough.
Therefore, I can see, but in an urban environment like here in cities, yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Especially for kind of shuttle buses and whatnot. So we're going to see more of them. This is definitely going to happen in the next 5 years. To actually see them in the wild, probably by the end of the decade.
Okay.
Anything else is just so hard to predict.
Yeah, of course. That's why I wanted to kind of get your thoughts on that. But yeah, like for me, I'm not really a car guy. So being here for so long, that's maybe even less of a car guy, I think. And I'm actually looking forward to, a car being able to take me somewhere. Instead of I have to go buy a car, I've got to gas it up, and I've got to,
take a taxi.
Yeah, that's exactly what I do.
It's exactly
that's what I do.
right?
I take taxis and Ubers. That's what we do. So I don't, like, I'll take my scooter in this area, but if we're gonna go, say, past that Sogo Bridge or whatever, then I'm not taking any, and I'm not driving. Yeah, beautiful, brother. Anything you want to touch on before we call it, man?
I think I'm good. Right? That was a long one.
That was a long one, about over an hour. Yeah.
Wow.
Beautiful,
man.
man.
I mean, we touched a lot of topics.
I think so. Where can people find you?
Oh yeah, I mean, this amazing position to be the only one with this name.
Yes, that's beautiful. Yeah.
So when you type in my name, Sascha Pallenberg, you're going to find me, whether it's on LinkedIn or Blue Sky, Mastodon, YouTube, of course.
Yeah. Beautiful, man. Thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to check out Sascha Pallenberg. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
We'll have a link to the YouTube channel in the description below.
Cool.
And we'll see you guys next time. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you everybody for watching Eddie's show. We feel only happiness, don't feel any sorrow. Welcome everybody. on his contact. Eddie Live Podcast.